Hello, everybody, and welcome to this training on cover letters. This is part of a series of trainings we're offering around different professional development tools. Today, we're going to dive deep into all things cover letters. Okay, so first of all, zooming out, there are three core components to most job applications. When you first submit an application, you'll be asked to submit a cover letter and a resume. And if the hiring manager thinks that you're a promising candidate based on those two documents, you'll be invited to interview. I've recorded two other trainings on resumes and interviewing tips, but in this session, we'll focus on how to develop a cover letter. You can think of a cover letter as a tool for you as an applicant to explain why you want the role you're applying for and how your past experiences make you well suited to the prospective job. They follow a specific format that can sometimes feel intimidating when you're first applying to jobs. So let's first review that. When developing a cover letter, you can think of it in three simple sections. The opening section is your chance to say, I love you to the company you're applying to. The second section is where you get to convince the hiring company that you love me. And finally, you'll close the cover letter with a brief section of why you should get together. So let's dive into each section. So this opening section is all about I love you. In this section, you'll want to show that you're passionate and understand the organization you're applying to work for. The opening line tends to be fairly standard, something like, quote, I am pleased to submit my application for the role of insert job title at insert organization name. From there, one or two lines describing the company and why you're interested in working for them should be included. Being specific about what draws you to the organization helps show that you're genuine. If you weren't previously familiar with the organization until you learned about the job posting, do some good research on their website and social media platforms to get familiar with the organization. If you only reference their mission or maybe basic information that could be found on an About Me section of a website, you probably haven't done enough research. For example, if I'm applying to an education NGO, I'll probably reference my passion for their mission and then maybe specifically reference one of the programs that they run that I especially respect. This section should be kept brief, typically no more than 3 or 4 sentences max. This is also a good place to reference any special connections you have to the organization. Have you previously volunteered with them? Have you connected with one of their staff members, etc.? So that is the summary of the I love you section. Now let's move to the middle section, which is the you love me section. And this is really the most substantive section of your cover letter. It's where you can explain how your experience and education makes you a strong candidate for the role. Usually, this section is 1 or 2 paragraphs. In this section, you get to brag about yourself by highlighting the past experiences you have had that align with the stated job responsibilities and expected qualifications in a job description. While you repeat some of the information that might be included in your resume, this is your chance to go beyond your resume and create a clear narrative that highlights your most relevant experience and clearly explains why you are a strong candidate that they should interview. Be cautious about not bloating this section with too much detail. While most job descriptions have lots of responsibilities and requirements, you'll want to focus on the ones that seem most important and tie your experience to those. Finally, you'll want to include a brief paragraph to reiterate your interest and why you're so qualified for this role. You don't need to be overly repetitive, but something like, quote, I'm confident that my experiences in fill in the blank with the broad experiences you've cited above make me well suited to this position. You'll also want to indicate your availability and specifically note that you hope for the chance to interview about this role further. For example, you could write, quote, I am available to begin the internship starting in May. I would welcome the opportunity to discuss this role further. I can be reached by email at, provide your email, or by phone, provide your phone number. Okay, so we've covered the three different sections, but we also want to talk a little bit here about the formatting and layout of your cover letter. And it's important that this is relatively standardized. It is called a cover letter for a good reason, because it should be written and styled like a letter, where you include the date in the top right corner, and then include the name of the hiring manager, the organization's name, and their address, or at least their city, before the greeting of the letter. The name of the hiring manager may require some research, including on LinkedIn. If you cannot find it or you're unsure, you can address it to whom it may concern. You should use a standard font like Times New Roman or Calibri, and ideally keep it to a 12-point font size. You also want to keep it to one page. And in the final Let's Get Together paragraph that you use, you can include your contact information and availability, as I previously mentioned. Okay. So to help ensure that your cover letter is aligned with the organization's recruitment, you want to understand how to assess job descriptions. Job descriptions usually include two main sections: the job responsibilities and the qualifications section. In the job responsibilities section, you'll want to apply to jobs where you have the most comfort with most of the responsibilities listed. But if there are some that you're less familiar with or experienced in, don't let that scare you. Job descriptions are written as the ideal profile of a candidate, but organizations know that most candidates will have strengths in certain areas and lack them in others. Usually, the most important responsibilities are listed first and continue in decreasing order of importance. Sometimes there's a helpful breakdown of the expected percentage of time the eventual candidate will spend on certain kinds of responsibilities. For example, it might say 30% of the time focus on grant writing, 40% on project management, 30% on other responsibilities. So you'll see that sometimes in the job responsibilities section. This section is followed by the qualification section. This will usually include references to a few important variables, including finding someone with aligned values and goals. That's especially true if you're applying to a mission-driven organization. Reference to the minimum education qualifications expected. So they might specifically mention the minimum requirement is to have a bachelor's degree, an advanced degree, etc. They'll also list the number of years of work experience and type of work experience that an ideal candidate would have. And this will include reference to experiencing managing staff, if that's applicable to the role. It will also reference specific skills, both soft skills like communication or negotiation, and hard skills, technical skills, including familiarity with specific softwares. Finally, there may be reference to your disposition or orientation to work, things like a sense of humor, adaptability in the face of challenges, willingness to take on responsibilities outside those defined in a job description. These are less important to prove you have the same disposition and more a useful signal for the kind of personality fit they may be hiring for. Usually, qualifications lists will start with minimum education requirements and years of experience before detailing more specifics. And usually, once we get past the education and experience requirements, those specifics are listed in order of relative importance or relevance to the role. As much as possible, you want to tailor your cover letter so that you're showing you can handle the most important job responsibilities from that first section and meet many of the key qualifications listed. Finally, to help you do that, it's important to look for keywords in the job description. One way to do this is to look for repetition. If certain words are repeated many times or across many sections, that's a good indicator that it's important to also use in your cover letter. One reason why including keywords in your application materials is useful is that some larger companies will use automated tools to do an initial screening of applications. That screening is primarily searching for relevant keywords from the job description to confirm an applicant's alignment. Even if a human is reviewing your applications, which we hope they are, the keywords are still an affirmation for the reviewer that you made a clear effort to connect your experience to the job requirements and qualifications. Hopefully, all these strategies will help you develop cover letters that show you are a strong candidate, worthy of an interview, and hopefully a job offer. Best of luck.